Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today I have the follow-up to a video we just did where it was Ichigo against the Akatsuki. I said in that video that we were going to be reacting to this video next, and so here we are. Let's go ahead and watch the video, and we'll of course I'll give you guys my thoughts as the video goes on.
Hello everyone, it's your host Seth the Programmer. I'm back from my
And as always, I have to say this just in case there's anyone watching this who's new. I will leave a link to this video in the description, as well as a link to Seth's channel and Clyde's channel, as well as some other links that you can go check out in the description box down below.
2-month hiatus, sorry about that, but why not celebrate my return with a good old collab with the old weeaboo Clyde on some Espada versus Naruto, which is the follow-up to Ichigo versus the Akatsuki. I thought this would be interesting. A lot of people wanted to see it, and obviously we've been kind of taking a long time on Ichigo versus Naruto, so these kinds of cross-verse videos are a good substitute in the meantime. So
anyway, while we make you wait for Naruto versus Ichigo, which is, it's going on 2 years, we do apologize. We thought we'd make this video as a follow-up because the last one we did was Ichigo he just whipped his down. He just, he slapped the Akatsuki, right? But anyway, we're basically going to do sort of the same thing here, but we're going to run through how would Naruto go against the Espada, just reversing the roles really of the verses. And I think you guys would like this anyway. A lot of people did request it, so we're going to be making the video here, and I'm happy to be on. Thank you for having me on the channel again.
So the premise of the video, we'll just be going over just general Naruto and Bleach scaling. The first one will obviously just be how does KCM2 Naruto in the war stack up, like the one that fought Obito alongside Sasuke, or how does Six Paths Naruto stack up. We can even go over like adult Naruto later on. Obviously, we'll be doing the similar thing where, I go over speed, he goes over speed, then we'll go over destructive capacity. He goes over destructive capacity for Bleach, and I do Naruto, and then we'll kind of do our own little conclusion at the end.
Between the two, who wins.
Without further ado, I guess I'll start.
This should be interesting.
When scaling Naruto characters, I try to be as all-encompassing as possible with the different interpretations you can give the verse.
Okay, sorry, you guys know I gotta be careful here because this is anime footage, and yeah, I don't know how this is gonna go. So we'll see.
Even more important when you're doing a cross-verse discussion, as fairness and charitability of interpretation will allow people who maybe don't feel as strongly as others for certain feats and statements still reach a conclusion they can agree with for the overarching premise of the battles. I did this already in my Ichigo versus the Akatsuki video, but I'll sum it up very quickly for those of you who don't binge all of my videos or haven't actually seen me before. In its middle to higher tiers, Naruto has a few metas of speed you can generally duke it out with. This also applies to Bleach as well, but we'll go over that later. In Naruto, these are A, the lightning timing meta, B, the relativistic meta, C, the faster than light meta, and something new, which you may be familiar with vaguely, is D, the power stacking meta. The lightning timing meta is pretty easy to digest. Characters in Naruto can both shoot electricity / lightning charge like energy through the air at others, and as a younger Anbu, Kakashi was known and even shown in the anime to actually race to a lightning bolt up a cliff and chop it in half before it could reach the ground. Yeah. And Kakashi, while not anybody to be underestimated, is certainly no god tier in terms of speed as just a youngling in the verse, and many people can react to him using Lightning Blade and his lightning attacks at point blank range, when he is more than likely stronger and faster as an adult, such as Pain Nagato, Zetsu Obito, and Haku. Even with everyone thinking Kakashi did tag a lightning bolt, characters like the Raikage still boasted he was the absolute fastest in the world after Minato, the fourth Hokage, was gone, showing lightning speed and lore was nothing he couldn't handle or was afraid of. The relativistic meta is when characters who scale above lightning level attacks or are stated above lightning, such as the Raikage or Kakashi, can be blitzed by characters like Minato or Naruto KCM many times over and be made to look slow in comparison. This is usually done via calking, such as when Minato reacts to the Raikage, it would require many times the speed of him, or some calking Naruto to needing dozens of times the speed of the Raikage to blitz him at point blank range. Calking Naruto dodging the Raikage is quite a contentious topic these days, and while I understand where everyone is coming from, you can simply say Naruto blitzed the Raikage and is clearly much faster than him. This actually goes into the faster than light meta as well, as the Raikage in the databooks is stated in his version 1 lightning cloak to move at a speed like light when using his lariat. which is consistent with the Kakashi argument from earlier where he wasn't actually scared of lightning level speed. This is also consistent since Darui fires light rays reflecting off of water particles in the air, and Haku can zip around ice mirrors at the speed of light in the data books if he wants to, which is how he blitzed Kakashi in part 1 from across the battlefield, and could still fight Might Guy and Rock Lee later on in the war as an Edo many years later when they were much more powerful. The power stacking meta has to go in details with chakra reserves, and this is pretty common in shonen, but for example, Naruto gives everyone in the alliance several times the chakra war arc Kakashi has, in his own words 3 times or so, and since Bijou chakra in large quantities directly impacts speed as shown with KCM or the red-tailed beast cloaks, and Bijou Naruto is a master of using his chakra pool by the end of the war, can possibly use thousands of times Kakashi's levels of chakra to move thousands of times faster than Kakashi, as chakra is how much these characters amp their physical ability, durability, and speed to begin with.
Yeah, it's basically the same as what happens in Dragon Ball. Characters use their ki to enhance their physical capabilities, and they also use it to fly, shoot energy blasts, and so on and so forth. It's basically the same principle. Same thing in Hunter x Hunter, and I think the same thing in Bleach.
This is more apparent in the novels, such as the Kakashi Light novel, where stated shinobi use chakra to go into battle mode, etc. However, this is more up in the air. You should consider things like this when looking at a shonen battle series.
In Seth and I's last collab, we explained how consistent light speed is throughout the series of Bleach, provided unequivocal evidence showing such, and how easy it is to prove characters are that fast even back in the Espada arc. As many vexatious individuals continue to not only spout nonsense about the series, but also downplay Bleach's speeds to abysmal levels. To put this as simply as possible, we have numerous moments in this nonsense about
Gin's Bankai slows for oh boy.
The series, but also downplay Bleach's speeds to abysmal levels. To put this as simply as possible, we have numerous moments in the series and official data books written by the author Taite Kubo showing us light speed is the most consistent measurement of speed among the series filled with literal gods of death. And although we won't be commenting on things from the novels or too many things at all from the war arc, as most of the war related information would spoil Naruto versus Ichigo, and the novels themselves are yet to actually be officially translated, which means we don't want to share any misinformation with our awesome viewers. What we will show, however, should be more than enough evidence to prove what I'm about to say. Chad, a rather weak character compared to the Espada, is able to watch a light-based attack come towards him, which he then reacts to and tanks. Lieutenant-level Shinigami are able to avoid the Negation at point-blank range, a light used to rescue hollows in danger, meaning it needs to be that fast by default, and is even used to get Espada out of the world of the living, meaning it scales to Vasto Lord A tier hollows. This is not only referred to as light by the head captain, but also hyped up by him as he tells other Shinigami to not even bother with it, implying he respects its ability. It's basically
if it's coming from Genryusai, then yeah, you know it's probably a good idea to respect it.
Way that he hypes up the durability of the Chains of Fate in the Bleach Hellverse movie. Nanal, a character who doesn't even have a Zanpaku toe and almost shat her undergarments from merely standing in front of Yamamoto, can actually tag X-axis, realizes he is attacking with light-based attacks, and this guy is the literal embodiment of light itself, as he is intangible and attacks with nothing but light itself. We also have 2 versions of Ichigo that would essentially get soul crushed by the higher Espada, scaling to characters who scale directly to those lieutenants I mentioned earlier, as he blitzes them without them being able to react, one being the right-hand man of the head captain, and the other being the lieutenant of the stealth force, a division which even Aizen praises for their speed and ability. He also then scales to characters like Byakuya and Yoruichi at this point in the story with his Bankai that amps his speed by 5 to 10 times that of the Ichigo that blitzes the lieutenants, which only a few chapters later Base Grimjaw calls this average speed and he mocks his Bankai's transformation. Ichigo is even able to block a Sero at point blank range, cut through the Sero itself, which then sends the Menos Grande back to Hueco Mundo, a hollow which scales directly to Lieutenant class Shinigami, and it uses a Sero which is referred to as light in the data books all the way back in chapter 49. Hell, even Ardenyeto dodges light at point blank range, and this is something that's actually a part of his narrative written by the author himself, which revolves around his weakness to light itself. If you actually look at this panel here, the manga handles this different than the anime. The anime actually changes how the scene works, but in the manga version, right, the wall gets blown open by Rukia. Ardenyeto turns his head to look at the hole in the wall. This part of the manga panel, where it shows Ardanyeto's face, is still darkened, and he is able to Sonido out of the way of the light coming directly at him. Once again, not only is it a part of his narrative, but how much more blatant do we need to be with this? So yeah,
it's
hopefully that's
obvious.
enough evidence to prove how fast these characters are on average, as later on in the series, there is way more than just these examples shown. And the Espada can all perform these feats in their base with absolute ease, let alone their resurrections that would multiply their speed by tens of times that of the characters I mentioned, especially.
And we just got done talking about them stacking power on top of it, which would make them stronger and faster.
Can be more complicated than speed, although a lot of the time feat scaling requires more calcs than speed as well. And while I recommend watching my video on Can Naruto Destroy a Planet for a much more detailed analysis,
we can watch this if you want to, by the way.
For the most part, everyone is aware that even the lesser Bijou can vaporize mountains, and characters like Anoki can vaporize island-sized turtles. However, when it comes to Ninetales tier fighters like Naruto, the scale is drastically different. After all, we're talking about the Bijou who, even in its most imperfect form, and with only half its chakra, can bully 6 other Bijou at the same time while not even seriously trying to hurt them, and can amp tens of thousands of shinobi to be several times base Kage level, while still having massive amounts of power in reserve and even fight the Ten Tails off.
Which is
even
insane.
with Naruto only taking a small portion of its energy, he became stronger and faster than any Kage alive at the time. In the data books, it is often cited that the Ninetales with only half its chakra has enough power to turn the world to ash, or that it has earth-shattering power with its Bijou bombs, and this may be consistent when you consider many variables such as Madara being able to swing meteors out of geostationary orbit from the asteroid belt at massively hypersonic to light speeds, to the Ten Tails being stated to be the end of the world, or having a chakra comparable to the size of a small planet and being calced to output 10 to the 25 joules with its cataclysms. It's also somewhat lore consistent as well when you realize that the Ninetales is a very significant portion of the Ten Tails, and the Ten Tails is at least a few percentages of Kaguya's power, Kaguya being a being who can wipe out entire time spaces with stars, planets, and moons residing within them. Even if you just said Kaguya was massively large planet level using all her chakra, saying she could destroy her planet and its orbiting moon, the Ninetales being at all a percentage or anything of the equation is something very serious to consider. That being said though, I'll go into more detail during the conclusion, and you can hear a way more detailed analysis in my video, Can Naruto Destroy a Planet, once again.
Calculating the destructive capability of the Espada is honestly super straightforward. Simply put, it's stated any Espada, regardless of their rank, can destroy Los Noches with a Gran Rey Zero, and Espada ranked 4 and higher, which would include Yami. They can perform an insane feat merely by transforming and without the intent to actually do this. With this mere transformation.
So just out of curiosity, I know this has nothing to do with the video, but it's just a question that I kind of want to ask you guys. But
which would include Yami, they can perform an insane feat.
But I just wanted to ask you guys, what did you think about Yami in the story, especially when they had that whole twist of you know, him actually being number 0, not number 10. If I'm being honest, I actually wasn't a fan of it. Like, I thought it was kind of cheap. Like, here's the thing, I was honestly never a big fan of his character. I always thought it was kind of annoying. Like, I'm sitting here and I'm wondering, okay, like, why is this character here? Like, what exactly is his purpose? What's he here to do? It just feels like he's there just to be like an obstacle for the characters to fight, which honestly kind of makes him boring, because the other Espada at least are kind of interesting. You know, maybe not all of them, and definitely, in my opinion, Ulquiorra, of course, is the best one. Definitely the most interesting. But yeah, Yami is just... I still have no idea what Kubo was thinking with him. You know, saying that, oh no, I'm not number 10. I'm actually number 0. It's ranked from 0 to 9, which is just... Like, I remember seeing that in the anime, and I'm like, wait, what? So yeah, again, I know, kind of a weird tangent, but I just wanted to ask you guys, you know, what your thoughts are on Yami. I always just, like I said, I always thought it was boring and kind of annoying at first. Still think he's annoying. Yeah,
feat merely by transforming and without the intent to actually do this. With this mere transformation actually being able to destroy Los Noches, it is also even a law by Aizen that when they release, they must go above the canopy of Los Noches because, as I just said, even if they're not intending to destroy Los Noches, just merely transforming while they're suppressing themselves could wipe out that entire area. This area is so large that Neliel states walking to just one gate could take 3 days to do so, which is consistent with statements made about the size of the Soul Society, areas that exist in the afterlife and are made to house billions to possibly trillions of souls, as they need to sustain the massive influx of hollows and souls that will join them in the future and bump up the populace. By default, these places need to be future-proof. As the Espada transform, they can amp their attack potency by tens of times, as their release forms are based on Shinigami powers, and Urahara believes they scale directly to Bankai releases, which we know the multiplier for. And if you take Ukiura as an example, who has 2 release forms, he can improve his power by 100 times his base form, as his second release would be 10 times the first release, and possibly higher, as Urahara says only their first release is comparable to Bankai, not their second. Now, of course, Urahara probably doesn't know about Ukiura's second release because he never fought against it. That's completely fair, but what we can assume...
Well, I mean, it is possible that Ichigo could have told him, you know, at some point in the future, like they probably had a conversation. Ichigo maybe brought up Ulquiorra and said, yo, yeah, this guy had like a second transformation because, you know, okay, what's his name? Kisuke probably brought up that, or probably reminded him that, yeah, we fought each other. And then Ichigo may have brought up that, you know, he had a second transformation and he was incredibly strong. So, I mean, I would say it's possible that maybe Kisuke knew about Ulquiorra's second form, because Ichigo could have brought it up after the, after, you know, Aizen was imprisoned and then before the Lost Agent arc.
From that is that the second release's multiplier would naturally be much higher because it's just in a league of its own. That's all I'm saying, guys. So it is consistent to say that the second release would be 100 times base. And the top 4 Espada plus Yami are so much stronger than the ones below, it's consistent to say they could destroy Los Noches hundreds to thousands of times over. Even base Grimmjow almost did this by accident when he was in his base form and he fired a controlled Gronray Zero, which Ichigo actually tanked the majority of when he stopped the attack, yet it still distorted space around them, and even Hullybell was impressed by the fight itself. Her Fruction actually say word for word that he shouldn't have used the attack, and that's just Grimmjow in his base form. The funny part is too, at this stage Grimmjow is only rank number 6, so to say that the Gronray Zero statement doesn't apply to weaker Espada, let alone the ones ranked above him, it just isn't true. With this being said, their average attack potency is consistently around country to continental, and with scaling of Ukiura, he can be placed much higher than this with his Seto Oscuras, which is stated to amp his attack potency by an order of magnitude, basically 10 times that of his normal power, right? And then his Lanzador Relampago, an attack which he whips out after the Seto Oscuras fails against the Vasto Lorde Ceros, clearly implies that the lance is much stronger than the previous fired Ceros, and he scales directly to the Vasto Lorde, which is a...
Okay, another question that I kind of want to ask you guys, but out of all of Ulquiorra's attacks, which one do you think is the most impressive? Is it just the regular Cero, the Granray Cero, the Cero Oscuras, or do you think it's the lance? I'm not even going to try to pronounce his actual name. I know I'm going to butcher it, but just a fun question I want to ask you guys. Which one do you think is your favorite? Let's go back now.
Clearly implies that the lance is much stronger than the previous fired Ceros, and he scales directly to the Vasto Lorde, which is able to...
For me, it's the Black Cero, in case anyone's wondering.
Perform planetary level feats and scales to some of the strongest characters in that arc. To end off this part of the video, even Shikai Ichigo was told to not flex his spiritual pressure in the world of the living by Shinji, as it could affect the entire world, and even fodder tier Shinigami like Rongiku have to wear seals to stop themselves from affecting the world of the living.
All right, gang. So, you know, there's the stats. You know, that's probably stuff you guys are mainly familiar with already.
Yeah.
I thought I would add a few new things here or there that I was thinking of over the past few months that I haven't been making videos. But without further ado, I guess we'll just kind of compare now a little bit more about their hexes and their resistances. Obviously, a premise to this discussion that's really important with Bleach versus any verse. Can the combatants see each other? And you could kind of argue that he would be able to see them anyway, or at least fight them, because he doesn't need to see enemies to fight them. With 6 paths, he can actually fight beings on a different parallel dimension overlapping the real one, let alone just being invisible but still physically, interactable or whatever. In this case, Naruto with KCM can sense intent and emotions without eyesight. So if we're in a verse where they can interact with each other, Naruto would be able to sense the Espada, as well as the fact that in Naruto, they seem to be able to interact with souls in astral bodies anyway, such as the Reaper Death Seal or the Renegon soul stealing abilities that can play tug of war with their own souls somehow. And chakra in nature has spiritual energy mixed in with it anyway, and we do know that spirits, when they go to the afterlife, they're basically chakra that just kind of floats away, such as when Minato lost his arms due to truth-seeking orbs from Madara, and then his ghost, when it was desummoned, still didn't have arms when it went to the afterlife, right? That kind of shows they still have, spiritual astral attacks, and they are like kind of spiritual astral, like chakra.
So they keep, I'm guessing they keep hitting the, I'm guessing the mic arm that they're using, keep hitting it and the microphone's picking it up.
Beings in general. So that's not a point of discussion for this video at all.
And when we would do versus matchups like this, why would you even want to have the argument where one verse can't see the other? It's kind of lame. But also, as we're being shown directly from Kubo's drawings and his narrative, people like Tatsuki and Ichigo's friends who are just very small, sensitive to spiritual pressure, right? They can see Aizen and characters like that. So, like, if Naruto can see things that are way beyond what they can do, just that in itself is enough, man. We don't even need to, like, give him the benefit of the doubt. It's just blatantly he can do that anyway. So if anyone wants to say Naruto can't see the Espada, he can. Just silly to bring that up.
He can, yeah.
Speaking
just
of
leave
charity,
it alone.
I think one thing to grant is, does spirit pressure just instantly neg anybody that doesn't have spirit pressure? And the answer is no. That's never been the case. Normal hollows have spirit pressure, but they don't just instantly soul crush every normal human they walk by, right? And another example, Aizen thought that Mugetsu Ichigo got rid of all of his spirit pressure and was just physically brawling with him. Aizen, who is the self-proclaimed second smartest dude in the Soul Society, thought that physical raw might and no spirit pressure was able to fight him, even though he can soul crush people by standing near them if they're too weak. So being strong enough physically is enough to negate being crushed. Plus, it's a little bit of a no-limits fallacy anyway.
Also, sorry, I just want to say this real quick. I know there's a lot of people out there who actually have this misconception that what Aizen said here was actually true. And it's understandable why some people might think that, because again, Aizen has proven throughout the series that he's incredibly intelligent. But at the same time, you got to remember, what Aizen was saying here, like, doesn't mean that this is what's actually happening. Remember, because Aizen, at this point, he wasn't used to acknowledging that there were other characters, that are stronger than him. He did at one point, which is why he came up with that strategy to trap, Kenpachi and Wakamundo, because he thought that he would give him trouble in Karakura, or the fake Karakura. And I still think that Aizen could have easily taken him out. Like, I don't think Kenpachi would have actually been able to do anything as strong as he was, because that's just how strong Aizen was. But the thing is that after he went through his evolution and became this weird butterfly thing, which I think even hardcore Bleach fans, even they admit, like, this form does kind of look weird. I don't know, like, I mean, for me, it doesn't really bother me, but yeah, I can see where people are coming from. Let me know in the comments, like, what do you think about this form? Personally, it doesn't bother me, but I always liked the form earlier where he had the longer hair, but he still had relatively normal clothes. But it's just that to me was, in my opinion, just perfect. Like, I didn't think that he needed to go any further. But again, I get what Kubo was going for, like going through the whole metaphor of being in a cocoon and emerging and all that stuff. I get that. But back to what I was trying to say about Aizen saying this, which a lot of people have confused to be fact, that this is exactly what Ichigo did. But no, this isn't what happened. Ichigo was just at a level where Aizen just couldn't sense him, because the thing is that this was hinted at before, like right before Ichigo and his dad Ishin went through the Dangai in order to fight Aizen. Before that, I think if I remember correctly, Ishin, Kisuke, and Yoruichi couldn't sense Aizen's spirit energy, and that's because Aizen was so that's because Aizen was just so far above them. I had to take care of something real quick. But like, yeah, he was so far above them that they just couldn't sense the spirit energy, and that's what was happening here. Like the Ichigo just got to a level where Aizen just can't sense him. He couldn't, even if he wants to. And even Keigo and Tatsuki, they said themselves, like, they can't sense anything from Ichigo, but they can sense the insane spirit energy from Aizen, and that's because, not because Ichigo was suppressing it, because he said that even if you were suppressing it, I still would be able to tell. But yeah, I just wanted to clear that up because I know some people probably have that misconception. Anyway, moving forward.
Getsu Ichigo got rid of all of his spirit pressure and was just physically, who is the self-proclaimed second smartest dude in the Soul Society, thought that physical.
But I do get what they're trying to say here, is that, you know, if Aizen believed that someone with just raw physical strength could hurt him, then maybe, yes, it is possible for Naruto to be able to fight Ichigo, even if he may not have you know, spirit energy to combat him with.
Physical raw might and no spirit pressure was able to fight him, even though he can soul crush people by standing near them if they're too weak. So being strong enough physically is enough to negate being crushed. Plus, it's a little bit of a no limits fallacy anyway to say that, oh, if you don't have spirit pressure, you just get crushed instantaneously. So that is another point that obviously we're going to grant to Naruto, that you can't just soul crush him by standing next to him and farting on him or something, all right? Without further ado, I guess we can just go over all of the individual Espada and what their hacks are like and how it would kind of stack up to Naruto.
So when we get into the first 5 Espada, they're not really an issue for Naruto at all. Like, Ardenero is too slow and too weak to even be a threat to Naruto. He's just gonna one-shot this dude. Xylel Alopro needs to physically consume him to be able to mess with his organs. Like, he needs to capture him in that alien, like, tentacle thing to be able to even do anything, which
yeah,
is just
that's not happening.
Another thing about trying to consume Naruto is that if the Ninetales doesn't like you, just touching it is a poison greater than Sasori's poison. Like, it actually poisoned Sakura, who can actually heal.
Yeah, right here. There are no new humans known to have eaten Ninetales chocolate meat. I've heard that there were some in Kumogakure who tried to copy the feat by eating 8-tailed octopus. Like, they all died. The 2 brothers especially, perhaps they are direct descendants of the Sage of Six Paths. I mean, maybe.
Heal herself and has mastery over poisons to the point where she was, like, incapacitated just from contact with its chakra. So, like, if the Ninetales is stronger than you, not only can it just, like, mind wipe you, like, and kind of control you, like when it engulfs Naruto and chakra, but it also poisons you upon contact if it doesn't like you. So it's kind of a little bit weird to say, yeah, you'll just eat him or something, like, and then he'll be able to cripple him.
Some people might bring up, well, why was he so useful against Mayuri and Uryu and Renji? And it's like, well, Renji and Uryu are ridiculously weaker compared to him, and Mayuri is somewhat relative to him at that stage in the story. Naruto isn't relative to Xylel. He is leagues beyond Xylel. He's gonna blitz and kill him before he even thinks of the idea of consuming Naruto. So just to bring that up, sure, the ability's hacks, but it just gets negged by someone who's faster and stronger. That's just the sad truth. As for Zolmari, the biggest benefit with Zolmari is honestly going to be, like, if he fights with the, you know, the meme teamwork, right, guys? You know, the Akatsuki teamwork argument. Yeah, he might be an issue, but we need to give them the most benefit of the doubt in this whole situation here. There is a chance he might hit Naruto with it. It is deadly. I'm not going to take that away, but not only is he slower and weaker than Naruto, but Naruto could probably avoid every single one of those heals because Byakuya is able to, like, turn around and bring up a Kido barrier and block one of them. So it's not something that just instantly appears on your skin. There's actually, like, there is a physical distance it needs to travel and speed to actually hit the object it's being aimed at. So yeah, it's not hitting Naruto.
And if there's anyone who thinks that that can happen, remember, the Raikage during the 5 Kage summit was capable of moving past Sasuke when he tried to catch him with the Amaterasu, so it is possible. So characters being faster than sight, like, they do exist. If the Raikage could do it, KCM2 Naruto could definitely do it. He's definitely fast enough to avoid it.
One of the things we'll be talking about is Naruto versus Bleach in terms of speed. This is really, really contentious. So I gave you guys 4 examples of how speed in Naruto can work. If you want to downplay the Naruto verse to lightning timers, then Naruto's just, like, scales massively above a lightning timer. You could say the same thing about Bleach as well. Like, there is, like, lightning timing statements and stuff like that. For the most part, like, the medium, like, tiers are more consistent. And in this case, like, even if you were to say Zamari was the fastest of the Espada, there's no way at all to like wank Bleach to be faster than wanked Naruto.
So again, gotta be careful.
Like the power stacking of Naruto saying he's like thousands of times Kakashi in terms of speed is way too ridiculous. Him blitzing characters stated faster than light is way too consistent as well, and how highly he scales above them, giving the whole Shinobi Alliance a chance, and making them all possibly as fast as the Raikage. It's just way too absurd for Zamari to even scale to it. Even if you were to say like Zamari is like much faster than light by like 100 times or something ridiculous, it's not very consistent to say that he would attack Naruto. And even if you did say Zamari for some reason just tags Naruto with like his weird hacks ability, you would then have to prove, okay, Zamari's Reiatsu and his ability can overpower Naruto's body and force it to do what he wants. If you look at Naruto kind of like a machine, and he has like Kurama within his body that can also control his body, it's kind of like, okay, now you have the Nine Tails brawling Zamari for control over Naruto's body, and it's like, who's going to win? Well, I don't know, maybe the multi-continental to planetary being versus Zamari, who's like one of the weakest Espada, and even like with massive calc stacking, you know, the Espada barely get to multi-continental or whatever, so it's a little bit funky to say Zamari does anything at all, even if he were to tag Naruto, and Naruto can sense attack intent as well, so he'd probably just avoid all the attacks.
Even if you want to bring up some weird scaling with Zamari, where Zamari scales to Byakuya, he scales to second release Yami, therefore blah 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 blah. It doesn't even matter. Naruto is so much stronger than those characters that it doesn't make a difference to the scaling we're talking about in this actual battle, right? And on top of that, as I said before, there is a physical speed of that eye ability. Like it actually takes time to get to an object to hit, which once again, Naruto, he's just going to be too fast for that actual attack. It's not even going to be an issue, and we need to make the most like wanked out argument possible to give them the benefit of the doubt that they can come up with this strategic plan when they don't even work together properly anyway. That's one of the narratives of the Espada, is they only follow Aizen because he's so much stronger, so that's just not happening. Like, once again, Akatsuki teamwork argument, there you go.
So I guess we can just get like all the powerhouses out of the way, like Grimmjow, Noyotra, Halibel, and Stark, and Ukiura, I guess. Ukiura might be a little bit different lore-wise, but same with Yami. But if you were just to get them out of the way, if you were to say like they were multi-continental or something, like you're, for whatever reason, like you were able to scale them that high, you all said they are as strong as like calc stacked Ukiura for whatever reason, right? With like his 100 times multiplier on top of Ichigo or all the other Espada who can wipe out Las Noches and or whatever. And then it's still like, well, Naruto is able to give everyone in the Alliance a cloak that can tank the Ten Tails Cataclysm, which is also multi-continental. So it's like, well, even scaling-wise, it doesn't really make sense. And the only person in the verse, if you go over the planetary lore that I was talking about, that has planet-level lore themselves is Ukiura and Yami, because Ukiura fights the Vasto Lord Ichigo, and that Ichigo has kind of like a life-wiping, world-ending lore in the Hellverse movie. Maybe you could go into more detail with that.
Okay, so Seth is right to just disregard the other Espada, because all of the other ones that are just power-based, like, they're so irrelevant to this fight. Really, like, they are just so irrelevant to this fight and so much slower than Naruto that we don't even need to talk about Halibel, Noyotora, Grimmjow, and arguably Stark, same deal, really. But Ukiura, yes, he does scale to Vasalode Ichigo, who has feats that even the head captain actually respects in the movie.
And I know that might piss some people off because they like those characters. I like those characters too, but guys, you gotta admit, they won't be able to do anything.
You can wank the Vasto Lorde at full power if it had the full Shihakusho. You can wank it to, like, easily planetary and so on, but, and even with that being said, you need to give Ukiura, like, every benefit of the doubt by giving him, you know, the Lanzador Lampago multiplier, because Seto Oscuras improves his power by an order of magnitude. The Lanzador is stronger. Yes, he scales to the Vasto Lorde, but, like, Naruto has way better feats than this, man. Even if you give Ukiura all these cool wank statements to scale to the Vasto Lorde, which, yes, it's impressive among the Bleachverse at this period in the story, it's nothing compared to what Seth has said about Naruto previously in the video.
For the most part, the wanked Espada
and keep in mind,
kind of trying its best.
He's only talking about War Arc Naruto. They haven't even gotten into adult Naruto yet.
To compete with like casual attacks from the Ten Tails and like suppressed Edo Madara, like just throwing meteors out of the sky or something. Like that seems to be their most consistent. And the Nine Tails does scale to a portion of Kaguya's power, and Kaguya still is wiping out entire dimensions. Like, and it's pretty absurd. Now,
and for anyone who wants to know what they mean by the nine tails scales to Kaguya's power. The thing is that you got to remember is that when it comes to the 10 tails, the nine tails represents the majority of its destructive capability. All of that raw power that the 10 tails had, most of it is in the nine tails. That's why the nine tails was so important, because the 10 tails wasn't 100% complete without the nine tails. So you could say that if Madara or Obito captured the nine tails, all of it, not just one half, and sealed the 10 tails inside of them, they the Shinobi Alliance would not have been able to do anything. They wouldn't be able to.
I know there's the whole, like, I don't know how you feel about this, but like warping space is fourth dimensional or something. Like, okay, that's like saying like gravity is fourth dimensional because it can warp space and there's a lot of it or something. Like, it's just absolutely ridiculous. Like,
you bringing up the dimension thing is interesting because people are going to say in the comments straight away, well, the Espada have dimension breaking feats like Ukiura, but nowhere is it implied that this dimension is like a universe-sized thing or an actual dimension, or however you want to interpret that statement. For what we know, that dimension that Grimmjow put Ukiura in could be the size of a room, which is just that strong that it can seal him. That doesn't mean anything else other than that.
It's just absurd to say bending space is 4D anyway. By the way, fourth dimensional, for those of you guys that don't know, it's basically saying like a fourth physical space. Like, you know how we view fiction as 2D, you know, like a fourth dimensional space would view us that same way. So people try to say, oh, you know, if you warp space-time since it engulfs our 3D matter, like fiction or whatever, you know, bending it, you must be able to interact with it, right? Even if you were to say like that absurdity, you could still say that Might Guy had a linear multiplier and 8 gates. It's only implied he got hundreds of times stronger than the Kage, who Naruto is stronger than. So it's like Naruto, if you were to say he scales to Might Guy, who warps space by moving, Naruto and KCM would also be fourth dimensional. So I don't want to get into big brain math arguments, but just using some common sense, that argument does not put the Espada above Naruto, because he still scales to people who also warp space. So
this is where we get to the actual answer, okay? All the big powerhouses among the Espada with the most attack potency, they just don't stack up to Naruto. He beats them in their specialties. Their specialties are being fast and being able to destroy things. He's so much faster and stronger than them that it's irrelevant. Also, if we bring up the teamwork argument where they all use their abilities in sync and they work together like the Akatsuki would do much better than the Espada would, that's not even like narratively consistent, nor is it honest for us to do that. It just wouldn't work. Like, we have to really like give the Espada all the benefits of the doubt to say they'd have a chance.
In all honesty, the Espada like hate each other.
You would have to do some serious mental gymnastics to be able to justify why any of the Espada could take on Naruto.
Out of Aizen's control, they tried to rip each other's heads off. Noyatora tried to kill Grimmjow while still under Aizen's control as well. So them using teamwork, not very likely. Like, maybe you could argue people like Barragan and Ukiura and Yami might use teamwork, but yeah, otherwise it's not. It's not. They really won't,
especially Barragan. Like, he hates all of them.
Finish with the powerhouse part is because then we get to the big issue that people are going to bring up. This is the one sole problem we've got to just put the nail in the coffin about, and that's Barragan. Now, Seth and I have been talking
knew they were going to bring up his senescence ability.
Seth has a pretty good argument towards this.
I know it's not called senescence.
It's because he is wanked beyond belief, and I think that a lot of people need to hear.
Oh, Respira, that's its name.
The problem with Barragan's ability is that it's Ryatsu based. And it has to interact with other people to actually affect them. Like, his ability can be sealed. Well, it does have time manipulation, but it doesn't seem to be immune to things like Hado and even abilities that should be.
Where he can age Keto, but the point being made is that it's not like he can just instantly get rid of said Keto attacks. The mere fact that it takes time or can delay him is actually very bad when fighting someone who has defense stronger than the Ketos he's had trouble with in Bleach. It's a huge anti-feed. Yeah, exactly. And again, it's not that to downplay what he could do. It's just that when you consider the context of what they're trying to argue, it's not going to work. It doesn't matter. Like, it's completely useless here.
Beneath Barragan in raw power, so his own ability is weaker than himself for a good bit. Unless he gets damaged, then it can affect him under his Hiedo or whatever. But in this case, you would have to prove that Barragan's ability would actually be able to penetrate Naruto's chakra cloak. And that's a real argument. Like, you'd actually have to prove that Barragan's ability is strong enough to penetrate Naruto's chakra cloak, especially if you're equalizing energy. And this is pretty consistent with Bleach. Now, there is different arguments with how Reiatsu affects abilities in the verse. You know, like, some people say, oh, Aizen negging Shikai's ability to insta-kill him with Reiatsu is actually just Kyoka Suigetsu's illusion. It didn't really happen, and blah, blah, blah. But in this case,
I don't think that's the
Barragan
case.
actually did respect Aizen enough to think, okay, this guy is so strong that my ability, I can't just like catch him off guard and kill him with it, right? And in this would be a similar case here, where if Barragan really did fight someone who's astronomically more powerful than him, it might not actually affect him, especially if Naruto's using his avatar mode or anything of the sort. It's really hard to argue it actually penetrate his chakra.
This is also confirmed by Gin, what Seth just said, where Gin specifically says this word for word verbatim. He says, the reason they follow Aizen isn't because of the hypnosis, it's because of his raw power.
Yeah.
Implying even someone considered the king of Wako Mundo, who has one of the most hacks abilities in the series, if Aizen wanted to, or someone like Stark or Yami or Ukiura, depending on how you argue it, okay? I only added him in because, you know, depends on how you argue it. Their Reiatsu would be able to the ability. And another thing to mention is this. So the way that Soifon and Hachi were able to deal with Barragan is by they put him into a keto box and they hit him with an explosion which he couldn't
At
age
point
in time,
blank
so he took
range.
damage. Okay. Now imagine if Naruto
And
does
he's
two
still
things.
only-
There's two things he could do here. He could cover Barragan in 1,000 clones that all have their own QB chakra cloaks, which would give him durability to withstand the respira ability, right? And then he just shoots him with tail beast bombs that make Soifon's Bonkai explosion look like a firecracker. Or Naruto could do what he did in the anime of Boruto, where he covered the explosion of Momoshiki, right? He covered the explosion with his QB chakra cloak, and he tanked the explosion on the inside of it. Now, sure, it won't work the exact same way, but the same logic does actually apply. Instead of containing an explosion, he would be smothering the respira ability.
I'm going to be honest here, right? I think that the Espada, and we've talked about this before, is stronger than, say, the Akatsuki. We've talked about this before. Like, the Espada is it's almost like they're a bunch of, like, mini Ten Tails Jinchuriki that can fly around and blast away, like, countries and stuff. But in this case, they're more like KCM Naruto level, like KCM 1, or maybe, like, actually just Jinchuriki level, rather than full-on KCM 2 Sage Mode Naruto level, if that makes sense. Even if you said for whatever reason, they overpowered Naruto, right? They just obliterated him. Zomari just makes him slit his own throat, and Barragan floats over his body when he's on the ground and just turns into dust or something, okay? Six Paths Naruto is just not getting negged by the Espada whatsoever.
No, not even
His
close.
power is so insane that he can fight Kaguya, who can realm bust. He can eliminate entire time-space continuums that have stars in it, moons in it, and possibly, now this is edgy, but in the games there's universes in it. So it's more like you're kind of comparing them to more like a Yuha type character, you know, give or take in terms of power, and it's like, it's really stupid to say that they would even remotely compare to Six Paths.
No,
It's
they wouldn't be
also
able to do
important
anything.
to note that KCM2 Naruto, while he has lore superior to most of the Espada, can also just clone himself thousands of times. He can literally make hundreds of clones for each one of the Espada. And all of them are almost relative to him in power. So teamwork is not a thing. Not at all. Like, if teamwork was a thing, Naruto wins on teamwork with himself. So it's not really looking good for any of them in any capacity, unfortunately.
As Seth said, the most comparable thing we can compare the Espada to, and it's only two of the Espada, it's Stark and Ukiura and Yami at full power with, you know, all benefits given to Yami because he takes a long time to get strong. They're basically just the equivalent of like the Ten Tails, and it's like they're too slow and they're too weak. And also people are going to bring up this argument. They're going to say, well, Stark can fire infinite Ceros, therefore he's universal, or weird arguments like that. Yeah, Stark's universal, okay, but it's going to take him about 1 million years to actually blow up the universe, so don't even bother bringing that up. That's just silly as hell. And as Seth said,
And I
even
like
if we
Stark,
do the
but
teamwork
no,
stuff,
it's-
Naruto has 100 individual plus clones for every individual Espada, and this is only KCM2 Naruto, not the ones that make that version of Naruto look like nothing. Like, the power cliffing between KCM2 Naruto and Sage of the Six Paths Naruto is just absolutely insane. What he did to Madara when he first appears, that's all that needs to be said.
You could also say with Barragan's ability that
You know, it's funny, but I think I mentioned this in the previous video, but
Absolutely insane.
Madara,
What he did to Madara when he first appears, that's all that needs
but Madara running away kind of doesn't make sense. Like, why didn't he just put out his hand and use the Rinnegan to absorb it? Like, that's always felt a little bit weird to me. It's like, dude, you can absorb energy. It's like, you didn't need to run away.
to be said.
you could also say with Barragan's ability that if he's fighting clones, the clones would like pop or whatever, and they'd learn Barragan's ability. and they could like engulf him with like QB chakra and then have him kill himself, similar to how he died in the original. I think we talked about that before. And when we say they're like 10 tails Jinchuriki or whatever, or like mini ones, we're not saying they're actually as strong as 10 tails Jinchuriki. I want to get that out of the way. Like, are you saying KCM2 would beat up a 10 tails Jinchuriki? It's like, no. I'm saying the way they fight is like a 10 tails Jinchuriki. You know, they fly around, they shoot blasts, you know, blah, blah, blah.
That's what we're saying. It's like the same sort of lore that is given to the 10 tails, where it can turn the world into just a disaster zone and get rid of the planet itself, right? We know how, and it's even beyond that too. I'm just doing the bare minimum stuff here. You can give the same sort of arguments to the wanked Espada like Ukiura and Stark and Yami, okay? But even with that said, they're too slow, and Naruto has better attack potency. That's why we use that as a analogy to compare the two.
And obviously, adult Naruto, which I hinted at earlier, you know, just...
Okay, boys, that's pretty much the end of the video. We wanted to make you guys something fun in the meantime, because we do like to collab, but this one in particular was a follow-up to the previous one, and it also gives you guys something in between this video and Naruto versus Ichigo, which is going to come in the future. There will be more updates on that very soon. Just hear us out when we say that it's a lot more difficult than just a normal video. There's things like a lot of money's actually going into the animation, which will be done at the end. We're not going to be doing any sprite animations. It's going to be fully animated with voice actors. When we say animation, we're talking actual.
If you want to support the project, please donate to the PayPal in the description of this video. Well, you guys, you heard him. Go to the description of this video and go support this, because this sounds awesome. And granted, this was made 2 years ago, so it's possible that they got a lot further in the into the project than where they were at this point.
Animation between the two fighting for about 7 straight minutes. This costs a lot of money. The actual just process of everything is much more difficult than just sitting down and recording a video like this. So please be patient. It is coming. If you want to see that video though, please do us a favor. If you've watched this far through the video, give this video a like. Let us know in the comments. Tell us if you want to see Naruto versus Ichigo, because we're very sorry for being super vague and not being vocal with you, but this is the update. Hopefully it, you know, it quenches your thirst for the time being, but it is happening still. Please be patient. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, and anyways, guys, thank you for watching. If you made it this far, just subscribe. You know, we'll make more stuff like this in the future, and if it was enough for you to watch all the way through, you might as well, right? Subscribe to the boy Clyde. You just hit 100K, you know, congrats, by the way. Other than that, guys, till next time.
Okay, so yeah, there's the video. And again, I hope you enjoyed it. I do apologize if you're watching this, you're the one who requested the video. I apologize if it took a while, but I did have other reactions to get to, and here it is. I hope it was worth the wait. Now, I think they made it kind of clear. It's like Naruto is just, he's too broken at that point. They were talking about War Arc Naruto, you know, KCM2 up to Sage of 6 Paths, or 6 Paths Sage mode, and then all the way into Adult Naruto and then Hokage Naruto. It's like, he's just way too strong at that point. The Espada, just as strong as they are, they're not doing anything. Like, he beats them in speed, attack potency, I'm guessing durability, strength. Is just, they won't be able to do anything. They even talked about how, you know, they have these hacks abilities. It's just not going to do anything. Like, Barragan's respira is just, it's not going to work against them, especially since it's established that abilities like that can't be negated. If you have, like, let's say, if you're stronger than them, it's just not going to work. So his respira is not going to work. What was his name? Oh god, what was the guy's name? I think he was the 7th one, the one with the eyes. I'm forgetting his name. Whatever it is, you guys know who I'm talking about, the one with the eyes. Yeah, his ability's not going to do anything. They won't even be able to catch him. It's just the Espada, as strong as they are, Naruto at that point is just, he's destroying them. And even again, if you do some mental gymnastics and say they can somehow find a way against KCM2 Naruto, 6 Paths Sage mode Naruto's just, he's bodying every single one of them. Like, they won't be able to do anything. And then the adult Naruto, that pretty much speaks for himself. And I still say adult Naruto, even without Kurama, would completely body them, because again, even without Kurama, Naruto is still incredibly strong. Like, he still stacks up to like Otsutsuki level characters, and like, none of the Espada are able to do anything against an Otsutsuki level character. Like, they against Kaguya, Momoshiki, Kinshiki, and don't even mention Ishiki. Like, they are just, they're way too strong. And if Naruto scales to them, even without Kurama, the Espada are just not able to do anything. Anyway, guys, I'm gonna end this video right here. I hope you enjoyed it. Again, I hope it was worth the wait, and I hope I talk to you in the next, or not talk to you, but I hope to see you in the next reaction. Bye for now.